Hey there, and welcome to another episode of your favorite libertarian. It's me, possibly your favorite libertarian. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the need-to-haves and the nice-to-haves for your AR-15. Let's get into it.
I think that we've already known. Yeah, I think that we've already known. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've already known. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
This will be the prop of today's video. It's an Aero Precision 10.5-inch air pistol. I chose this because, among all the other advantages of having a shorter AR-15, it fits in frame the best out of all of my setups and will be good for demonstration purposes for this video. But if you want a full playlist on all the things and all the stuff related to this, you can click up here or up here and you can watch the full playlist if you want further detail on this exact gun. Let's touch on context real quick because it matters not only in how you set up your AR-15, but also in the information that you're getting and who you're getting it from. As far as who I am not military or law enforcement. I have no experience or expertise in either of those fields. I am what you would call a behind every blade of grass American, if you know what I mean. I love my freedom, and I also aim to keep it. I wanted to make this video because I've been noticing a lot of trends lately, none of which are good or going in a good direction. The world is in shambles, our country is falling apart. The dollar is getting so worthless that eventually it won't be worth anything at all. And it doesn't seem like the people in power care, and in fact are trying to make the world worse on purpose. It also seems like if you read the Bible that we're getting dangerously close to the end times. With all that in mind, it's no surprise that most people are wanting to buy their first AR-15 to defend themselves and their family, and possibly their preps, for when the world finally does completely fall apart. Okay, first up for need-to-haves is going to be a sighting system of some kind. Now I'm going to show you a couple examples right now, but bare minimum, you have to have a way of aiming your gun so that you can shoot accurately and be morally responsible so that you have your best chance of hitting what you are aiming at. You don't want to shoot someone else accidentally, and you also don't want to miss when it counts. This first example is a A2 style AR-15, meaning it has the front sight gas block. Now the front sight gas block simply means that your gas block is also your front sight. If you take this completely off of the barrel, you're going to have a single shot AR-15, so don't do that. And also if you take this off, you're going to have no way of aiming without a front sight. So also, don't do that. In the rear, we have a flip-up iron sight. This is an MBUS 3. I have pretty much everything I'm talking about. There'll be a video on my channel, so check those out if you want. But this provides a way of aiming, which is bare minimum for your AR-15. You have to have a way of aiming. The pro of this setup is that if you buy this type of AR-15, you don't need to buy a front sight because you already have it. You have a rear sight that you might need to buy, or it might be included depending on how you buy it. So bare minimum sighting system, this is a option for you. In nice to haves, we'll talk about backup sights and additional sighting systems, but for right now, bare minimum is met with this criteria right here. Let's show you another example. This is a different way that you might have your AR-15 configured when you buy it. It might not come with any sights at all, and it might be this flat top style Picatinny rail right here, Picatinny rail on top of your forend, and then M-LOK slots to attach any accessories. In this case, I don't have any irons at all. I just have a red dot sight. This provides the bare minimum of having a sighting system. Is it ideal in a grid down EMP attack scenario? No. Is it ideal if you run out of batteries? No. But these things are very reliable these days. This one in particular has 11-year battery life if you have it constant on at I think setting 6. And the red dot does provide a lot of advantages, having you be threat focused instead of focusing on that front sight, really being situationally aware. And when your caveman brain turns on in a life or death situation, you're going to have both eyes open when you're shooting anyway. You're probably not going to be squinting and trying to focus on that front sight, in which case a red dot makes a lot of sense. But this, again, is just an example of a sighting system to meet that bare minimum. In case you're wondering, we are doing these necessities in order. So first thing is obviously being able to aim during the day. Secondly, you need to be able to do the same thing at night, and that is where a flashlight comes in handy. Technically, you just need to be able to see at night, and if that's the case, night vision is pretty cool, but also insanely expensive, and in this economy, most people can't afford night vision, which is why we're talking about flashlights right now. In the middle of the night is usually when bad things happen because evil loves the dark, and statistically, that's when most violent encounters happen in low light or no light. That's why the flashlight makes sense, because it allows you to positively identify your target. Let's say you hear a bump in the night. You could blindly shoot into the dark based on what noise you hear, but that's not morally responsible, and tactically that's not a good idea either, because you're not actually able to use your sighting system in the dark. So why do that? You need a way of positively identifying your target, because it could be your son going to get a glass of water in the middle of the night, and you don't want to shoot that person, obviously. It could be your drunk neighbor that is banging on the door because he thinks it's his house. He just went to the wrong house because he's hammered drunk. You don't want to shoot either of those people. You just want to shoot the bad guys. So that's where a flashlight helps. I'm going to give you a couple options. This first option is a more affordable option, really good for closer indoor home defense type situations. Another option I'll give you is more expensive, but it has a lot more throw, a lot more candela, so you can shoot further out if you live in an area where you have long distances that you need to shoot at night. So first off, this is the Polytech X by Streamlight. Very affordable. I think the last one I got on sale for 40 bucks. It's around 50 bucks, 60 bucks, so very affordable flashlight. 600 lumens, dual fuel, so you can do CR123A batteries or the rechargeable 18650 batteries. Great runtime, about 3 hours runtime, a little bit more with the rechargeable batteries. And it is going to be pretty easy to find a mount for. This is a 1-inch diameter flashlight, so any 1-inch mounts, ring mounts that go to M-LOK will work with this. This particular mount is Impact Weapon Systems, and it's specifically for the old school MOE holes. I talk about all of what that means in another video, but most of your handguards are going to be M-LOK slotted, so you don't need a special mount. You can just get an M-LOK mount with a ring, and you can put a flashlight like this on. You can also use this as a handheld flashlight if you want, because it comes with a pocket clip and all that stuff. But this is a great light because it is very affordable, and it suits the needs of this setup, which is like home defense, vehicle defense type stuff. Also only $40, which is great if you're trying to equip your whole AR-15 with all the things that we're talking about in this video. Now let me show you something if you need to be able to reach out a little bit further with your light. ModLight has entered the chat. This is the ModLight OKW head, which is 69,000 candela, so same lumen of 600 lumens, which is the same as that other light, but this candela is way more candela, so it can throw the light a lot further, which is great if you need to be able to shoot long distances. It obviously doesn't make sense on this setup because this is an M&P 1522 that I just use for plinking really quietly and will be using to teach my sons how to shoot with. I just happen to have this because I took it off of another rifle that I sold, and I think it looks hilarious on this gun, so here it is. But this is an example for you of something that has a lot more throw, which is great, but is a lot more expensive. This is 3 times as expensive as the other light. It's over $300 the way it's configured. So there's that. Pros and cons to all that, up to you. You can watch my other videos on these flashlights. I have a whole flashlight video playlist if you want to know more about any of this stuff, but you need a way of seeing in the dark so that your sighting system can work even when it's dark outside. I'm sensing a question coming up as I'm going over using different sighting systems in the dark with a flashlight, and one of those I could see a potential new AR-15 owner that doesn't yet own an AR-15 asking, or someone that just bought an AR-15 asking is, well, what if I just have iron sights and a flashlight? Will that still work? Will I still be able to see my iron sights and aim with those in the dark? And the answer is no, unless you have the flashlight on. But if you have the flashlight on, what happens is you create a really bright light in front of you, and then you can see the silhouette of your iron sights very easily. So you don't need to have night sights where they have like, tritium in them or like glow in the dark sights. You can still use your iron sights without anything, any special coating on them, with a flashlight very easily. So if that's something you were wondering, hopefully this answered that question ahead of time so you don't have to ask it in the comments. But if you do have questions, feel free to keep putting those in the comment section below. Or if there's anything you're kind of embarrassed to ask because you're new to all this, you can DM me at my Instagram account, which is just your favorite libertarian on Instagram. Next up for necessities, and yes, in this order, is going to be ammunition and magazines. Now you might be asking yourself, why wouldn't this be the very first thing on the list? And the reason is, if you don't have a way of responsibly aiming the gun, you shouldn't be loading the gun and shooting it. Also, if you have, I'm gonna try to pick a scenario where you can't say like, whoa, why don't you just turn on the light? Or it's the middle of the night, you're setting up your AR-15 for home defense. Middle of the night, the power's out. There's no way to see in the dark unless you had a flashlight on your gun. You shouldn't be taking those shots in the dark at noises. So that's why those two things are first and second on the list, and this is third. Make sense? I hope it does. If not, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's my opinion, so I can have whatever opinion I want. Now let's talk about ammunition. This ammunition right here is 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO M855 green tip. It's a 62 grain projectile, and it's going roughly 3,000 feet per second. Why is that good? There's many reasons. I won't get into all of them right now for the sake of this not being a huge tangent in the video, but suffice it to say, you want to make sure whatever ammunition you're buying works the best through your gun and works the best for your needs. You might need to shoot further distances. You might have a longer barrel, shorter barrel. You might have different twist rates. There's all sorts of ballistics that go into play when trying to figure out what round makes the most sense for you. But for me, I like green tip because it has really good barrier defeating capabilities. It's relatively affordable. You can buy it in bulk, which is important. Any ammunition you're getting, it's great if you can stock up on it. And it works really well with the different barrels that I have for the different guns and the different brands of barrels that I use. So green tip is what I'm using, but find out what works for you and buy a lot of it. Next up is going to be magazines. The things you want to look for when buying a magazine are that they have anti-tilt followers, meaning, and this again is going to be for people who are just getting into AR-15, so pardon me if you already know this, but a follower is what is in between the spring and the rounds in the magazine. What it does is it holds those rounds and feeds them upward as the gun is cycling and as the spring is pushing and relieving that tension as it's bound up. So as that spring expands, the follower is on top of that spring and pushes those rounds up. If you don't have an anti-tilt follower in your magazine, what can happen is that follower can do this or this, and that will make those rounds bind up, turning a 20-round magazine in this case into a 3-round magazine, because on the 4th round it could get caught and then you can't use the rest of the rounds in your magazine, which would not be ideal. So anti-tilt follower is number one. Has to have that for a magazine you're getting for your AR-15, and it has to be durable and reliable. There's tons of brands out there. I won't get into all the brands, but there's different types of AR-15 magazines. Maybe I'll do a video on which ones are good, bad, etc. But there's things like this, which are, in this case, is a PMag. This is a PMag Gen 3. It's a 20-rounder. Mostly plastic. Really, the only thing I think that is not plastic is the spring. I think that's it. Then there's magazines that are completely metal, completely aluminum, like Duramags. And those are, all metal except for the follower. I think the follower is the only thing that is not metal. Then there's things that are kind of like a hybrid of the two. There's Lancer mags, which have metal feed lips, because they want to make sure those feed lips are strong and durable, but then it's saving weight by having plastic for the body of the magazine. So all sorts of different brands out there, but most important thing is that it's reliable, it's durable, and it has anti-tilt follower in it. Once you figure out which ones work the best for you and which ones you like, buy a lot of them. Moving on. Now we get into probably the most controversial part of the video. If you thought the ammo section was controversial, buckle up, boys, because now we're going to get into two camps. There's the camp of people that say a sling is a necessity, and then there's the camp of people that say a sling is a nice to have, and in some cases you might not want a sling at all, depending on your context. And again, context matters. So let's talk about why someone would say a sling is a necessity. A lot of people would say a sling to a rifle is like a holster to a handgun, meaning if you have a rifle, you need a way of carrying it around, and a sling is a way to do that. If you're patrolling, if you are on guard duty, a sling makes a lot of sense. You don't have to hold it with your hands the whole time. If you are trying to shoot standing at long distances for some reason, a sling can help stabilize you, and in other shooting positions, a sling can help stabilize your position so that you can take really accurate shots. So a sling's good for that. If someone's trying to take your gun away from you, if it's attached to your body with a sling, it's hard for them to do so. That's also great. A sling is also great if you need to go hands-free, meaning you still want to have your gun on you and retain possession of your weapon, but maybe use your hands to render medical aid, something like that. Lots of reasons why a sling makes sense, and why some people would say it's a necessity for your rifle. On the other hand, depending on the context, in this case, this is a home defense AR-15. Its primary role is home defense. Some people in your family might not be trained in how to use a sling, swim in and out of a sling, manipulate the sling, and it could be something that gets caught on stuff when they're trying to get it out of the staging area. They might get tangled up in it, or might get in the way of controls that they need to access in an important time of their life. And in those situations, you might not want a sling on it because you're not traveling long distances with your gun. You are not taking long-range shots with it. So just having the gun itself and having it in your hands might make more sense depending on the level of training of everyone else in your household. Maybe this is your only gun, and this is the gun that defends the home, so anyone who is home at the time is going to have to be able to use it. I probably want to give her this as opposed to this with a sling on it. So there's that. Let's talk about how slings can attach to AR-15s. Depending on your configuration, you might have, in some cases, they have like a little loop right here for the old school AR-15s, and then you have to like loop it through a stock over here. In that case, you just have the strap and you kind of like weave it through and connect it that way. So that's an option. In this case, we've gone the QD route, and QD just means quickly detachable or quick detach. So here is the end of the sling right here, and you can see there's little nubs here, and as I push it in, those nubs go in. And then over here I have a hole and video on how I installed this, but you just pop this in, clicks into place, and then in some cases you can freely rotate all the way around. This one stops at certain spots. So there's the front right there, and then on the back here we have another one of these. We have another hole here that we can click into, and now I have the ability to do all the cool sling stuff that I mentioned before, and it's a way of carrying this around if I need to. If I'm taking a class and there's a lot of times where I need to safe and hang it, then this is great for that. If I'm doing cover and movement type stuff, again, fantastic, but it's nice to have the option. So regardless of if a sling is right for you or not, depending on your context, I would still probably suggest, kind of as a nice to have, depending on your situation, might be a need to have a QD system of some kind so that you can attach a sling if you need to. Context might change, your situation might change, and you might need it, whereas before you didn't need it. Slings. Congratulations! If you're watching this part of the video, it means you've met all the necessities, you've met all the requirements, and you're now in the luxury of the nice to haves. First up on the nice to haves is going to be a backup sighting system. This is a good example because I have a red dot and I also have iron sights. Pros and cons of the red dot. Pro is that you have both eyes open shooting. When your caveman brain turns on in a life or death situation, you can focus on the threat and still see that dot. However, on the downside of things, if the battery goes out, if there's an EMP attack, you no longer have that sighting system, which means you're going to have to revert to your backup irons. So that's why this is a really good setup. Got backup irons. If the battery dies, this is something I could trust in a life or death situation because, one, I've vetted out the reliability of the actual gun, but also I know that I have multiple ways of aiming. And the way that this backup sighting system works is that as far as the height of the the sighting system, let's talk about that really quick. You have a true co-witness for your iron sights. Pretty much all iron sights, unless they're like specialty iron sights to work with more night vision capable optics and stuff like that, are going to be true co-witness, meaning they are a certain height above the bore, and it's a very standard height above the bore for all your AR-15s. That's going to be your true co-witness. This is usually the lowest height for your sights that you can get. Then slightly above that is going to be your lower 1/3 co-witness, and that means in this case, it's a perfect example. This is a lower 1/3 co-witness mount for this optic, so that way the dot, dead center dot in your red dot of this tube is going to be slightly higher than where your sights are going to line up. So for me, what's great about that is I can shoulder this, I'm seeing my dot, and it's above my irons, so the irons aren't getting in the way of my view of the dot. But then if for some reason the battery dies or whatever happens, all I have to do is just drop my head a little bit more and I can see through my irons. And you still have the ability to see your true co-witness iron sights through this tube without the tube or the mount or anything getting in the way of that sighting system. So you have the ability to use both at the same time if you want. You have the ability to use one or the other. It just gives you a lot of options, a lot of versatility, and you have the reliability of the iron sights if something happens to your red dot. Pretty cool. As you can see here, I don't have any type of backup irons on this particular setup. One, because this is just like an extra fun gun. That's not something I'm going to use in any type of serious context. But also, red dots have come a long way. They're very reliable. And again, context being a thing, if you are in a situation where you're not worried about an EMP attack or, you know, running out of batteries, this might work for you. But in terms of additional things that you can do to this to improve or have additional capability for your initial sighting system, magnifiers. If you're not familiar with the magnifier it is, it's something that sits behind your red dot and then can go out of the way and then go in front of it, so you can decide if you want to have magnification or not with your red dot. That's pretty much how that works. Not much to it. The reason you might want to have a magnifier with your red dot is that for PID at distances, or for scouting, or just being able to see further away before stuff gets close enough that you need to use a red dot, it's nice to have. There's also 1-power prism scopes. So if you were just wanting to get away with one optic and no irons, a 1-power prism scope might make sense because it's got an etched reticle, usually has some type of bullet drop compensator or some type of ranging in there, which is cool. And it doesn't require batteries, but you can illuminate it if you want to. So if you wanted the same type of profile as this, instead of getting a red dot, if you got a 1-power prism scope, that might serve your purposes as well. That could also be coupled with a magnifier and work the same way, but maybe with a little bit more information in your reticle. So that's pretty cool too. Now let's talk about a third option, which could also have a combination of optics, which would be a scope. So like a 2.5 to 10 power scope as an example. You have the ability to be pretty close up and just have minor magnification, and you have the ability to see really far away. That's great. It has an etched reticle, so you don't have to worry about battery dying. You can illuminate it if you want, but it's not necessary. So you could just have a scope, in my opinion, you could just have a scope with no irons and be squared away. But if you want to have additional sighting systems, you could do flip up iron sights to where they fold down and then fold up when you need them. But you probably have to detach your scope to be able to use them. So you need a quick detach mount. That's a whole nother thing. Or there's also the option of having that scope and then having a piggyback red dot on top of the scope or on the side. That would allow you the ability to have a secondary sighting system should your first one fail, or just, you know, you need less magnification, way less magnification than you have. You could have that red dot on top, and if you're shooting something far away and then something very close all of a sudden appears, you can pop your head up a little bit, use that red dot for that both eyes open shooting, and then once that's all taken care of, you can go back to zooming out with your full-size optic. So there's another option for you, but again, these are all nice to have. So as long as you have some sighting system, it gives you some capability. At this point, we're just talking about maximizing the capability of the platform with different optics and different setups for sighting. You know what else would be really nice to have on your AR-15? A suppressor, a can, a silencer, if you will. All of those things really mean the same thing, and that is noise reduction, flash reduction, and sound signature reduction. And I'll explain what those things are real quick, but if you want a more dedicated video, I have playlists on silencers as well. This is a Huxworks HXQD 556 Ti. It's the titanium version of their can. At this point, it's an old can. There's newer cans that they make, and you'll find that to be the case if you order a suppressor, because by the time you get it, it will be outdated because you have to wait so long because the NFA exists. So cons of a suppressor are that you have to deal with the NFA, and everything about the NFA is a con. It's going to add more weight to the end of your gun, which is the last place you want to add weight. And it's going to cost a lot of money, especially for a rifle can or a rifle suppressor. If you're cool with all those things, then a suppressor makes a lot of sense because you're reducing that flash, which is the bright light that comes out at the end of the muzzle after that explosion, that powder burns off, so that no one can see where you're shooting from. It's also good for night vision shooting and just low light shooting in general. You also have the sound signature reduction, which is going to make it harder for someone to figure out where you are based on listening for where the shots are coming from. And you also are reducing that sound signature for your own hearing. Now, this is a 5.56 10.5 inch AR-15, which is insanely loud without a can. It's not as loud with a can, but it can be quieter if you are using a different caliber AR-15, like a 300 Blackout. I won't get off into that tangent, but there's different calibers that you can get AR-15s in. And if you have a really good can and subsonic 300 Blackout, you can make an AR-15 extremely quiet. But for 5.56, because it's going so fast and it's breaking that sound barrier, it's still going to be loud. The suppressor just makes it less loud. And that's good if you are having to shoot indoors and for some reason you can't get your hearing protection on in time. That's nice. Let's show you another can. This is a 22 caliber can. This is for the M&P 1522. It is a Silencer Co. Sparrow. Super cool monocore design, lightweight, comes apart for cleaning. And this makes this particular gun and even supersonic rounds extremely quiet. So this is a situation where, besides the other benefits, you're also getting the benefit of extreme noise reduction to where it's actually hearing safe. Let's talk about hearing safe real quick for a second. Technically, hearing safe is 140 decibels, but it's like if you shoot one time at 140 decibels, that's hearing safe as long as you don't do that again within a week or something, or like so many days. And no one's actually shooting like that when they're training with the suppressor on. They're shooting multiple shots. So you still need to wear ear pro in most cases, unless it's like a 22 subsonic or like a 300 Blackout subsonic. In some cases, it's that quiet. In those situations, you might not need hearing protection, but just be advised if you are going to go down this route in this nice to have and you do end up getting a suppressor, if it's 5.56, you're still going to need to wear ear pro. The more you know. The last nice to have thing would be, well, actually two. I've got two different things. First thing would be a bipod. So if you're using this for long range, it'd be nice to have a bipod, but there's a lot of shooting positions that you can make work to make long range shots. Secondly would be night vision stuff. And I'll touch on this very briefly because I don't have night vision stuff. I can't afford night vision stuff right now. And probably if you bought your first AR-15, you're not thinking about night vision. But if you want to really maximize it for, you know, being able to do all sorts of cool stuff, night vision stuff would be a thing. You want to make sure you have a really sturdy rail, because if you're putting a laser on here, you want to make sure your laser doesn't move around, so you can use that as a certain type of aiming. A lot of the lasers will have a white light, an IR light on it, a visible laser, and an invisible laser, which would be an IR laser. That would all be one unit. Usually goes on top. You got to have a straight rail, a pick rail for that. This would not be great for that because this is a plastic rail. This is the 22. But if you wanted something like that, you could do that. Also, if you didn't have that setup, let's say you had a setup like this, where it's a MOE type handguard, you could at the very least have a night vision capable red dot and a light with an IR head on it, so you can actually still use the illumination for IR, maybe even have a flashlight on the other side and have your white light on the other side, but it'd be a way that you could still use night vision with this type of setup. And this is a nice setup for night vision otherwise, because it's really short and it has a suppressor on. So, you know, there's options there too, but I say all that to say, I don't have night vision. I can't afford night vision. If you can afford night vision, you're probably way past the introduction level of this video. But yeah, that's another thing. If you get all the other stuff and you have all your other gear and all your other preps squared away, then great, get night vision. But that's not something I'm doing right now, and that's okay. So let's review. Need to haves: a sighting system of some kind, a flashlight, ammunition, and a way to hold the ammunition. Nice to haves: sling, possibly controversial. Secondary sighting system, night vision stuff, bipod, a suppressor, and that's pretty much it. If you guys can think of anything that I missed in the need to haves or nice to haves, let me know. And remember that none of any of this gear matters unless you are trained on how to use it. So seek out competent and effective training. A lot of great training companies out there. I would highly recommend MDFI. If you are not familiar with them, there's a link in the description or in the pinned comment that'll take you to that link. I also have a discount code with them, so if you want to use my discount code, it'll save you some money on those classes, and it'll get you better prepared to be effective with your new AR-15. Because you should be the weapon, and your AR-15 should be the tool. You don't want this to be the weapon, because then that means you're the tool. Just how none of this gear matters unless you have training, none of any of this matters unless you are spiritually squared away. So if you have any prayer requests, put those in the comment section below. Love praying for you guys. If you want to put your prayer requests in a more private forum, you can put those on my Instagram account. You can DM me there at Your Favorite Libertarian. And if you just want to get to know or find out more about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that's a great place to do it as well. As times are getting crazier and crazier, I want to make sure that I'm using my platform to glorify God and to help prepare you guys for the spiritual warfare that's going on right now, not just the physical stuff that you're seeing in your daily lives that you might need your AR-15 for. If you like the work we're doing here and you want to help support the channel, best way to do so is by clicking the link in the description or in the pinned comment below. It takes you to my link tree where all of those links are that YouTube doesn't want you to look at, and it allows you to buy awesome stuff that you're already going to buy, but in a lot of cases at a discount with my exclusive discount codes, and help support the channel at the same time. If you can click those links while you're doing your shopping, I'd greatly appreciate it. And it doesn't cost you any extra. Why not, right? Well, that's going to do it for me in this video on the necessities and the nice to haves for your AR-15. If you like this video, be sure to share it with your friends, someone who might also be getting a AR-15 for the first time or thinking about buying their first AR-15. Stay tuned for the second part of the series where we talk about supporting gear for your AR-15. And as always, thanks for watching, stay free, and God bless.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.